Hello, everybody. This is Anti-Natalist, and I have a very, very interesting video today. And I am going to be interviewing Cath. She's been a Facebook friend for, I think, 8 or 9 or 10 years, and we can't seem to figure out how long we've been friends for each other, but she lives in Montreal, and I'm visiting Montreal. And so we have met for the first time. We have spoken on the phone for many, many occasions, and we have messaged and spoken back and forth on Facebook multiple times. So I'm at her house, and she didn't want to be videoed. So what I wanted to do was set up a little collage of things that have meant something to her for her life. And I really like this candle that she had in the corner. So I said, why don't we just light this candle and use that as part of the backdrop. So I'm going to start off with her special cat here. And this cat lived to 21 years, from 1971 to 1992. It's pretty incredible, huh? And it's her beloved Caesar, and he was a Siamese cat. And tell me about this one.
That is Tootsie. I got her in '94. She needed a home desperately, and I wasn't looking for a cat, but I felt sorry for her, so I brought her home with me. And she was the most wonderful cat. I loved her with all my heart. And she died in 2008.
So that is Tootsie, and that was Caesar. And so we also have sweet Mipsy.
Yeah.
Mipsy. And these are beautiful urns, by the way. Yeah. Sweet little Polly.
Yeah.
And so the purpose of this video is to give some documentation from somebody who is a mother and a grandmother, and who is a very strong anti-natalist, and possibly because of being a mother and a grandmother, we will find that out. But tell me about this picture, Cath.
That is Christmas 1989. My two granddaughters were 5 and 3 at the time. We went to a hotel near the airport because we had about 17 of us for dinner, too many for me to cook for that year. So my father at the time paid for our dinner in this great big room in this very nice hotel over at the airport. And that was in the hallway of the hotel.
And that is you?
That's me, and that's my two granddaughters.
Yes, two granddaughters. Mm-hmm. And let's see, this is a picture of you and Paul.
A collage of Paul, who I knew for 32 years. Special guy in my life. He died in 2007. And we had an ever-changing but very good relationship for all that time. And I miss him quite a lot.
And you've spoken of missing him a lot, and it's been devastating for you, hasn't it?
Yeah, it has, and I have waves of missing him. Otherwise, he goes through my mind like just regularly, all the time.
His name has come up in several discussions that we've had, and you've been married
once when I was young for 5 years only. And I had my one daughter, Donna, and got a divorce after 5 years.
Okay, yeah. So you had one daughter, and so were you an anti-natalist when she was young?
I didn't even know such a thing existed.
Yeah.
I had no idea. She was not planned, but she was welcomed, and she was and is very loved.
Right.
And I only got pregnant 4 months after I got married.
Yes, and everything I know about Kathy is that she has been a very loving mother and grandmother, and her grandchildren and her daughter are in her life. So things have been amicable, and she's been supportive of them, and they of her, and now they help her. They bring her food. They go to the grocery store and bring her food because she doesn't get out that much. So then the granddaughters came along, and so were you an anti-natalist by the time they came along?
No way,
No.
not at all. Which is why I was able to enjoy them as much as I did, actually. Because I went crazy over those two kids. I painted their nails, I curled their hair, I took them to kiddie movies in the pool and the playground and everything else. Bought them cute little clothes and played on the floor with them and everything. I just kept them over at my house overnight. Sometimes it was a pleasure for me and gave my daughter a break.
Now, along the way of life, I'm sure some bad things, occurred in your life and their life. And did your coming to the conclusion of being an anti-natalist, did it have any result of those harms along the way?
Of course, those harms made me think and question.
Yeah.
Question critically and think critically, which I started only 10 years ago for some unknown reason.
Okay, so 10 years, that would be what, about when?
Well, 2012 maybe.
Okay, so about 2012, you officially kind of, you became aware of...
I started a course of very in-depth, honest, fearless, critical thinking and questioning of literally everything. I questioned all the things, the ethics and morality of all the things that people never give a second thought to. And I examined everything in life. And in that process, I realized that making new people is wrong. Because every single one of them will suffer and die. And you don't do that to people.
Right.
They cannot give their consent. And life is risky. There's hurt in everybody's life. And everybody ends up dying. So I feel very guilty for having done that to my daughter, not unknowingly. I would never have done it again. That's how I feel about it.
Yeah, and she says, yeah, making new people is wrong. It certainly is. And, even people today, their couples are getting pregnant and, pregnant bellies everywhere, new babies, toddlers, even twins, and even IVF treatment. It's just never ending. I don't know what it would take. What is it going to take? A war, a pandemic, a family death, a family crisis? Well, no, they almost...
I don't think anything will stop it.
I don't think so either. And I think they're bound by religion and they think it's either God's will that they have a child or that things will just work out.
Yeah. Optimism bias.
Optimism bias. Now, tell me, in a deep level, how do you feel about your children? How do you feel about them navigating their way through life and going through chapter after chapter and going through the struggles themselves?
I worry about them every single second, and I will until I die. I am acutely aware of the terrible things that can suddenly happen to people, terrible accidents, diseases, sudden deaths. I worry about losing them. I worry about one of them, romantic problems, money problems, all kinds of problems can hit them. And as they get older, they are learning more now. They're getting older and they're realizing more themselves about life. And my older granddaughter has said to me, I would not bring a child into this world. And my younger one isn't going to have one anyway because she and her boyfriend just don't want one. My daughter is past the age of having one and doesn't want one anyway. And her two girls came along I won't say by mistake, but they just came along like most people on earth do, not planned.
Yeah, but I think things are really changing, and your granddaughters are, are truth to that.
Yeah.
How old are your granddaughters?
35 and 37.
Okay, yeah. So, obviously by then, if they're not wanting kids, they're not going to have them. And, I hear of these women who want or have children at 40 or after. And I just think, why? You've gone so long without a child, and then you want to do this to your world, your own world. Mm-hmm. And, it's not so much that you're, afflicting harm to your own life or you're afflicting change, but, the child, like you said, has not given consent.
No.
And so, did your child or grandchildren ever complain about life or not being consented to be born?
No, they never said that.
So
No,
they're happy, are they?
Yeah, my daughter is, she kind of understands antinatalism, but she says to me, you know, a lot of people are glad they're born. And she's not as staunch about it as I am. She would not ever want any more kids, but that's mainly because they're mainly hard to raise. She would be more child-free than anti-natalist. If she was in a relationship or wanting, you know, she would not want any more. And the two girls have never said, none of them are wishing they were never born. They've never said that to me, if that's what you want to know.
Yeah, interesting. So, but you know what? Life is not over for them.
No.
And the worst is always yet to come.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, I don't think I had anti-natalist thoughts when I was like maybe 12 or 14 because I really did not like my family, and then our family had a divorce, and then, you know, bad things happened, and bad stepmother comes along and just, you know, split up of everything. But, you know, I think you provided your daughter and your granddaughters, you know, as good a life as you possibly could have.
I did.
And maybe because you have this feeling and this awareness that, you know, you're there to provide for them. You're their only mother. And, you know, what are they going to grow up to feel if their mother does not love them?
Yeah.
And so you've been with them ever since. And now tell me, Cath, if you had a chance to do this all over again and you know, have a child, would you do that?
No, if I were young enough again, or still, to be able to have kids, as much as I love my daughter, my two granddaughters, I've realized so much. I could not do that to another human being. Again, I would be extremely careful. And if I accidentally got pregnant, I would have an abortion immediately to spare that child from the burden of existence. And they don't call it burden for nothing.
Yeah, burden. And I'm kind of worried with America's, you know, new state laws that may restrict abortions, and
Terrible.
I just cannot think of like somebody who doesn't want to have a child and is restricted from, you know, getting abortion, because sex is not consent to having an embryo creation in your body.
No.
Sex is not consent for that.
No.
And so women just have the burden of reproductivity, which is, you know, one-sided. And there's no punishment for the guys who are ejaculating and getting these women pregnant who can't have abortions.
Yeah.
So, I'm just really, myself, I'm really glad, you know, I remain child-free. I never really had much interest in children, period. And I babysat when I was younger, and you know, that wasn't appealing to me. So, you know, rescuing dogs was kind of my mission. And you know, a minute ago you had mentioned your you know, your granddaughter's not wanting to have kids, and I just think the later generations have become more enlightened. They're just more aware, and they don't tend to follow tradition as much as somebody like from your generation. Or
I agree with you, but I was not one myself to ever follow tradition. I always thought for myself. So.
Now, were you religious?
I had it shoved into my head in school, and yes, it stuck with me for a while. But in this process of this critical thinking and questioning, I deprogrammed myself completely, and I've used strictly common sense.
Yeah.
And so there's nobody out there. We're here. We're on our own on this planet. We have each other, and we have ourselves. Period. And
Yeah, deprogram. That is a really, really good word. I too was religious at one point, and it was forced down my throat. And I guess for a while I was a believer. But you know, I moved out of my home state, and I deprogrammed myself for various reasons. And yes, just like Cath did, I, you know, leaned towards common sense and just reality based. And you know, I feel like I'm a realist, not an optimist and not a pessimist, but a realist. And you know, I mean, a minute ago she was talking about her granddaughters, and they were, happy enough to be placed into existence. They don't feel regretful at being, given life, but they're still young. I mean, late 30s, and they're not at the end of their life. And Kathy is at the end of her life, age-wise. We don't know how long anybody lives, but she's in her late 70s, and she's gone through a lot of physical issues and struggles and
heartbreak and losing people and animals that I loved. And
yes, I'm depicting the animals that she has loved and lost, and that takes place. The lives of these animals, it takes place after decades of living. That the heartbreak just compounds, and then she's lost Paul, which
Paul was a very special guy, and my favorite aunt.
And you weren't married to Paul.
I never married Paul,
but he was
a long relationship. My Auntie Pat, my favorite aunt, died in 1980. I still think about her very often, and I miss her terribly. I wish she was still here and fine. She'd be very old though, but she was one person that I lost that I really, really loved with all my heart. And my parents are dead, of course. They weren't bad people. They didn't mean to hurt me, but they weren't the right parents for me.
Oh,
so they made me go to religious school, and that wasn't the right thing to do with me. But they didn't mean harm. They weren't mean people. They just didn't know any better.
Yeah, didn't know any better. And so, obviously, when you get past 40 or 50, you've got, physical struggles and, shortcomings and, setbacks and, limitations. And she's at a point now where, just getting around and like going to the store would be really difficult, and, pain sets in, and hard COPD, yes.
Breathing, lungs.
Yeah, breathing. She's quite worried about that, and she actually told me today that she wanted to make some changes, and no, she's not fat. She's not fat. She thinks she might have put on a few pounds, but she's not fat. But she wants to stop smoking.
I have stopped smoking.
Today.
Yeah.
Okay, she stopped at 2:00 today. That's what she says, and we'll see. But okay, yeah, she said she stopped, and she seems very convincing. I don't know if she's ever tried to stop before.
I was in the hospital for 2 1-week periods in the last 25 years. Didn't bother me a bit to not smoke. So I didn't smoke for those 2 1-week periods.
Okay, but then then she picked it
I
up.
went home and started smoking.
Went home, yeah. So she just wants to lose some weight, and she's gonna stop getting the chocolate and filling her cupboards with Danish. So she kind of has an upbeat. She has some goals, right? Oh yes, and she has this little stepper that sits under the table, and it really looks like a kind of like a what will they say, Stairmaster, but a mini Stairmaster that just sits under your desk, and you pump it, or you like a bicycle.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's like a bicycle sort of, and she's gonna start doing that, and she's kind of motivated because she has some interests. She has some things that she wants to do before she dies. I'm not gonna say what those things are, but it has piqued her interest, and she's kind of getting involved, kind of get back into the swing of things, and maybe meeting some people and just kind of expanding her horizons. And it's interesting because about a month ago or more, she was doing her taxes, and she had premonition.
Yes, I
and
did.
then she said to me, well, this is the last year. I'm glad I don't have to do this again. She really thought that this was going to be her last year of life. And so I'm hearing a different story now. She seems to be more upbeat. And, I think with the sun coming out and, the summer and the warmer days, and maybe she's gotten a dose of that vitamin D. And maybe the warmer days have just improved her spirits, because I know the gray dark days don't do anything for people's mental health. But she's definitely had kind of an upheaval here. So I just feel a kind of a sense that you want to change some things, and so she just wants to keep going now. So in the past year, I was hearing about so many physical problems, and how disgusted she was with life, and that she didn't want to leave her one kitty behind, and her one kitty is attached to her. But now I'm hearing like a reversal of kind of those dark thoughts. So I was really happy to do this video with her, and she's a very, very strong activist. In fact, she goes on Quora, and she intercepts words like anti-natalism and that into the discussions and to the questions.
All about and atheism too.
Atheism, yes. Yeah, and I am not familiar with Quora, but she did show me on her home computer. And so it's really, really good, folks, to just interject the word anti-natalism and child freedom, into your conversations and to your letters, into your texts, and just any way you can get the word out. And she's actually gotten some thumbs up from people on her discussions. So she's very, very active on anti-natalist groups on Facebook, Reddit, and she's on my Facebook group, Babies Are Not Miracles, and several of you she's very fond of. Mark, she's fond of you. Marcus.
And Matthew Nimite. And
Janelle Dollar.
And there's a number of other ones I can't think of right now.
And what about, do you know Matt of Life Sucks? Do you know Matt?
No, I don't.
I don't think I have. Anyway, that's another one you need to start looking at his videos.
Okay.
I'll put you in touch, because there's a lot of Life Sucks monikers, but I can show you which one is his. But we shared some of the similar interests in other YouTube channels. So we're winding down here. Is there anything else you want to add?
I don't think so.
Okay, well, I really appreciate this, and I'll upload this as soon as I can. And I'm glad you turned out to be an anti-natalist, and it seems like your granddaughters are as well. So say goodbye to everybody.
Okay, bye, everybody.
Bye.
Don't reproduce.
Don't reproduce, yes.